Have you ever felt like you're fighting a battle you just can't win? Like you're wrestling with your own destiny, your past, or even with God Himself? Well, today we're diving into one of the most mysterious and profound stories ever told, the tale of a man who literally wrestled with God and somehow survived. This isn't just an ancient legend, it's a story about transformation, struggle, and earning a new identity. So, get ready, because we're about to unpack the incredible night Jacob became Israel. Our story begins with a man on the run. Jacob, whose name literally means supplanter or deceiver, has spent his entire life living up to that name. He tricked his twin brother Esau out of his birthright with a bowl of stew. Later, with his mother's help, he disguised himself to steal the blessing their father, Isaac, intended for Esau. As you can imagine, Esau was furious, vowing to kill him. So, Jacob fled for his life, leaving everything he knew behind. He journeyed to his mother's homeland, where he met his match in his uncle, Laban, who was just as cunning as he was. Jacob fell in love with Laban's younger daughter, Rachel, and agreed to work for 7 years to marry her. But on the wedding night, Laban switched his daughters, and Jacob woke up married to Leah, the older sister. The deceiver had been deceived. He had to work another 7 years to finally marry Rachel, the woman he truly loved. For 20 years, Jacob worked for Laban, enduring trickery and broken promises. But through it all, he prospered. He became a wealthy man with a large family, 12 sons and a daughter, and massive flocks of sheep and goats. He had learned a lot. He had matured. The schemer was now a patriarch. But one thing still haunted him, his past. The unresolved conflict with his brother Esau was a wound that had never healed. Finally, God told Jacob it was time to go home. The thought must have been terrifying. He was heading straight back towards the man who had sworn to kill him. As he journeyed, he got word that Esau was coming to meet him, and he wasn't coming alone. He had 400 men with him. Was this an army? Was Esau still seeking revenge after all these years? Jacob was petrified. He did what he always did when he was in a corner. He schemed. He divided his family and his flocks into 2 groups, thinking that if Esau attacked one, the other might escape. Then, he prayed. It was a desperate, heartfelt prayer, acknowledging his unworthiness and begging God for protection. He reminded God of his promise to make his descendants as numerous as the sand on the seashore. After praying, he prepared a massive gift for Esau: hundreds of goats, sheep, camels, cattle, and donkeys, sent ahead in waves to hopefully soften his brother's heart. He was trying to buy his way out of a fight. He was still relying on his own cunning, his own plans. But that night, something would happen that would change him forever. Having sent everyone and everything across the Jabbok River, Jacob found himself completely alone in the darkness. This is where our main event begins. Suddenly, a man appeared and began to wrestle with him. The Bible doesn't say who started it, just that they wrestled. All night long, until the break of day, they grappled in the dust by the riverbank. Who was this mysterious stranger? Jacob was a shepherd, a strong man used to a rugged life. He was no pushover. Yet, he couldn't overpower this opponent. As dawn approached, the man saw that he couldn't defeat Jacob. So, he reached out and touched the socket of Jacob's hip, dislocating it with a single touch. In that instant, Jacob must have realized he wasn't wrestling an ordinary man. No human possesses that kind of power. The man said, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." But Jacob, despite his injury and exhaustion, refused. Clinging to his opponent, he gasped, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Think about that. The man who had spent his life stealing blessings was now desperately clinging to this divine being, demanding one. He was broken in pain, but he wouldn't let go. He knew this was his moment. The man asked him a simple question, "What is your name?" It was a loaded question. To answer Jacob was to admit everything. I am the deceiver. I am the supplanter. I am the trickster. And Jacob, for the first time, didn't try to hide. He confessed his identity. "Jacob," he replied. And then, the stranger gave him his blessing. He said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Israel, a name that means he struggles with God. Jacob's very identity was changed. He was no longer defined by his deceptive past, but by his courageous, desperate struggle with the divine. He didn't win the fight by overpowering his opponent. He won by holding on, by refusing to let go until he was blessed. The sun began to rise, and Jacob, now Israel, asked the man for his name. But the man simply replied, "Why do you ask my name?" And then he blessed him there. Jacob knew. He named the place Peniel, which means face of God, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." As the sun rose, Jacob limped away. He was a changed man, not just in name, but in body and spirit. The limp was a permanent reminder of that night. It was a symbol of his weakness, but also of his incredible strength. It was the mark of a man who had met God and lived to tell the tale. His old self-reliance was shattered, replaced by a new reliance on God. He no longer walked with the swagger of a con man, but with the humble limp of a man touched by the divine. So what happened with Esau? As Jacob, now Israel, looked up, he saw Esau and his 400 men approaching. The old Jacob would have panicked or schemed more. But the new Israel walked ahead of his family, limping, and bowed to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. And in one of the most beautiful moments of reconciliation in the Bible, Esau ran to meet him, threw his arms around his neck, and wept. The feud was over. The gift Jacob gave wasn't the livestock, it was his own changed heart. His humility, born from his struggle with God, disarmed Esau's anger completely. This story is so powerful because it's our story. We all have things we wrestle with: our past mistakes, our fears, our doubts, our very faith. We all have moments where we feel alone in the dark, fighting a battle we can't seem to win. Jacob's story teaches us that it's in the struggle itself that we are transformed. It's okay to wrestle with God, to ask the hard questions, to pour out your heart in desperation. God isn't afraid of our struggle. In fact, He invites it. Jacob didn't win in the traditional sense. He was physically wounded. But he overcame by holding on, by being honest about who he was, and by desperately seeking a blessing. His greatest moment of weakness became his greatest strength. That night of wrestling turned a deceiver into a prince of God, the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. So, if you're in a season of wrestling right now, take heart. Don't be afraid of the struggle. Cling to God, even when you're hurt and exhausted. Be honest with Him and with yourself. Because it's often in those dark nights of the soul when we're at the end of our own strength that we truly meet God face to face and walk away with a new name, a new purpose, and a blessing we never could have stolen or schemed for. You might walk away with a limp, a reminder of your vulnerability, but you'll also walk away as someone who has struggled with God and overcome. Thanks so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into these incredible stories. Let me know in the comments what you're wrestling with. We'll see you in the next video.